do you recognise this tracksuit at all? The one with the Zara from, or was this from a different time?
Different time. That was just before me.
Just
that. I reckon that's the season just before I arrived, because we were in Zara when I first signed.
Yeah.
And it might be, actually. It might be. I can't really remember.
Shall I put it on just to give you a better look?
You can do if you want, mate. Yeah, they weren't exactly fitted back in those days.
No, they weren't. Not at all. But it's like a tent on me. But
yeah, oh, mate, they were like a tent on all of us. You look back at the shirts that we wore.
Yeah.
You put one on now, they're like the biggest, baggiest things ever.
Hey guys, Goggsy here, and welcome back to the Gog Pod. Today we've got a very special guest in Scott McDonald. How you doing, man?
Not bad, Goggsy. How are you, mate? Keeping well under the circumstances?
Superb. How's lockdown treating you?
Not too bad. We've been very fortunate over here, obviously, with COVID-19 and how we managed to lock it down pretty early doors. Yeah. So we've reaped the benefits of that and got back to the new normal, as they're calling it, a little bit quicker. A little bit of a worry at the moment because there seems to be a thought that there might be a second wave coming here, but hopefully we can sort of stem that out. But it's good to see all you guys out and about, getting ready for the new season. And I'll tell you what, Motherwell are looking in decent shape, aren't they?
We do.
In terms of their squad and what Robinson's done there. So lots to look forward to again this season, I reckon.
And of course, I must mention this. This is the first cross-time zone interview I've ever conducted. So thank you for being a part of history on my YouTube channel for that.
More than welcome, mate.
What time is it over there?
It is 8:30 in the evening here.
So prime time to be doing an interview on the Goggsy99 YouTube channel.
Yeah. You're getting me out of putting the kids to bed, so I'm happy with that, mate.
Superb. And hopefully during this podcast, you don't find another way to score against Motherwell.
Yeah, well, it's, obviously being at Celtic at that time, it was, it was kind of weird, kind of odd coming back and everyone sort of hating you from then on in. It was kind of surreal. And I don't need an invitation to remind people, and I think a few people took it a bit too much to heart when I did do that.
Yeah, definitely.
But I guess if you're gonna give it, you got to take it, and that's the same for me. If you're gonna give it, you got to take it too. But nothing but good memories and great people. In my time, both spells at Motherwell, it's fantastic. And I've always said it, in terms of what Motherwell gave me, it gave me everything in terms of my start. I know I started at Southampton and broke through there and done well, but if it wasn't for Motherwell, I don't know if I would have continued my footballing career. So, Terry was a big influence on that. And Motherwell as a whole, as a football club, gave me a lot, and still have really good friends that are still there now.
The first time I ever spoke to you properly was a Motherwell Player of the Year event, and you recognised me from my YouTube videos. How did you find out about them?
I think the first time I recognised you or asked who you was you were actually sitting down in the Players' Lounge with, I think it was Lionel Ainsworth, doing an interview with him at that point in my second spell at the club. And I think that's when I came across that. I can't really remember how. I didn't have Twitter at that point, so it wouldn't have been on any of the social medias. Yeah. But I come across you in terms. I think you're well spoken of within the change room as well, Goggsy, throughout time. So you'd be pleased to hear. Yeah. And nothing but good things, mate.
Well, that's great. I mean, it may have changed, seeing as Tony Watt is now in the dressing room, and I've played FIFA with him. So it might be
really?
Might be a
Did
different...
you scalp him?
No, well, we played pro clubs, and I wasn't very good. We'll just leave it at that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he fancies himself on that, doesn't he? I see him he promotes himself a little bit on the old Twitter, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I keep an eye out for that, but it's past. Honestly, I wish I could still play those video games. I'm well past that now. I feel like my old man now when I come and play it with my little ones. I'm just like, I'm so out of date, mate. And you get the PlayStation 1 back out for me. That's how long
definitely.
ago.
Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah.
So, of course, with the A-League returning at the end of the week after a sort of 4-month hiatus, was it?
Yeah.
What have you been doing since the beginning of the break?
Just keeping fit. I think there's a running joke actually that I don't like pre-seasons. I tell you what, I probably work harder than anyone else. Yeah, I know, and it's a funny one because I actually probably work harder than what you would do in a pre-season in my off seasons and during the periods that I'm off, and that's why when I come back, I'm pretty much up to speed at those points. They were never deliberate in terms of missing the pre-seasons. I just did. You know, the last couple of years at Motherwell, especially, that happened a lot. So I think
you came back and signed the new deal after pre-season.
Yeah, I think twice I did it, didn't I? So I think people are like, oh, he just doesn't want to do pre-season. They are a bit boring. You want to get straight into the games, but the good thing is now, pretty much with pre-season, you go straight into games anyway.
Oh yeah.
And the games, because of the League Cup situation in Scotland, you come around with games very quickly, so it's good. You know, you're not doing Terry Butcher, 5 laps as quick as you can around the running track up at DL Park, and then 50 push-ups, and then go and do 4 laps, and come back again, do 50 sit-ups, go and do 3 laps, and he'd be screaming at you the whole time, yelling at you, abusing you. Get round there! You better go beat him! Effing if you don't get there, and he'd just be chasing you almost with those knobbly knees of his, chasing you everywhere. But what a guy! But good memories and some bad ones up at DL Park for types of pre-seasons we did. But that's probably a little bit more old school now than what the new generation are used to.
Yeah, because when I played boys club, like it was only like the last couple of years that I played like seriously, and that was when we started breaking into a proper pre-season, and I was just like, thank God I'm not good enough to make it as a pro.
Yeah, I mean, well, back then though, like they used to make you run till you were sick.
Oh yeah,
that was as well. That was seen as like, right, he's getting fitter. It would just make him sick. Yeah, he's getting fitter.
Yeah,
he'll get fitter from this. Whereas now I think they take the foot off the gas a little bit and get the balls out quicker. But you used to dread just coming in. You knew that first 10 days was just like you're going to get battered morning, afternoon, no balls, just run. Horseshoe runs, cross country runs, doggies, you name it. You're just doing it all. Just fearing the worst. The heart was pumping. But all part of it, I suppose, and reaping the rewards at the end of it.
Quite right. And so we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. We're going to start off with before you arrived in the UK, you played for the Gippsland Falcons and Casey Comets.
Say that again. Gippsland.
Gippsland. Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
No, you're right. Mate, you're right. I love it because it's Australian, so no one really know it. But yeah. So Gippsland.
What is the grassroots situation like in Australia?
Well, I suppose a lot like Scotland. Over the years, it's sort of changed. Probably not for the better. Scotland would probably agree with that in terms of how the new generation is brought into the professional game. But back then it was, you would play for your local club, then you'd be select teams. You'd still play for your local club throughout that. And then you would be part of your state team. So a state team would be like, how would I put it in Scotland? Because Australia's so vast, isn't it? So you play for Victoria. I played for Victoria. Then onwards was Institute of Sport. And then that was pretty much like preparing you for full-time football once you got to that level. And then you would play for, your national team age groups. And I was fortunate enough to play with the Joeys, the under-17s, at a World Youth Cup. So, and that was in 1999. And we had a great group at that point.
That was the year I was born.
Yeah, making me feel
Sorry
old.
about making you feel old.
I was 17 then. I was doing things that you could only dream of at 17. But it was it was a great period. Some tournament because there was some top players there. You remember Adriano?
Yes.
You must remember him from
he played for Inter, didn't he?
Yeah, that's the one. So he
Yeah.
was like the top player at the tournament. He played for Brazil. And we managed to do so well. We actually made it to the final, and we played Brazil in the final and got beat 8-7 on penalties. So it was we managed to, we did really, really well. And from
did you score your
you
penalty?
can imagine. You know what? I was lucky that I ended up getting taken off before the penalties were taken, so it wasn't my fault.
Just as
but
well.
I would have loved to have actually taken one, to be honest. You know, it would have been good to obviously when you're standing there, it's worse when you're not playing your part. But that was honestly, that was really devastating losing out that way. But when you go back to it, it was such a great experience playing on World Tournament. I'm talking, right? I'm getting recorded here. This is my boy. He's playing on his PlayStation. He's got his earphones on.
That's like my brother as well. Oh, hello.
I can't get rid of him. He's by my side all the time. Excuse me, guys. But so just an interruption, but no, never mind. We keep moving on.
No problem.
But throughout that tournament, there were so many scouts there, and I had the opportunity to go to Germany. Bayer Leverkusen were very interested at the time to take me out there, and Southampton were pretty much the most prominent English team that were willing to offer me full terms at that point without going on trial or any of that, because there was a few of those options. But being Southampton, British club, English speaking, and at that time Southampton was and at that time Southampton were a club with not very much money, and the Premier League was quite disjointed in terms of finance. It wasn't all getting this, mega money at that point. So Southampton had to recruit and bring youth through. So it was a great opportunity, and I thought that's the club for me. Dave Jones was the manager at that point. I ended up turning up, and then the very first day I got there, Dave Jones got sacked.
Superb.
So you're going, wow, this is a whirlwind. You go in and sign your contract, and all this media is outside, and Dave Jones nowhere to be seen. He's been basically put on gardening leave for other reasons than football at that point. And then, thankfully enough, Glenn Hoddle walked through the door. So what a player and what an icon. So to work underneath someone like him, and probably some of your listeners will know the older ones anyway, a guy called John Gorman, Scottish guy who used to work really closely with Glenn Hoddle.
I'm aware of the name,
coach. Yeah, fantastic coach. And it was really great to obviously learn and work under those guys. And it was a great period, my whole period at Southampton. I learned a massive amount, and it, obviously being the first place I moved to at the tender age of 16 years of age, it was very hard to leave after the 4-year period that I was there. Managed to make my Premier League debut at 18. I came on against Aston Villa at home.
That's my English team.
Is it? Well, there you go. So came on. We lost that game 3-1 actually, but I managed to make a handful of sort of appearances off. That's when they were decent, mate. Villa.
Yeah,
they weren't bad then. John Gregory was in charge. Yeah, they had a good side. I think Pablo Angel was playing up top.
Oh yeah.
So, what was the Swedish centre back as well? I can't remember his name now, but he was it
Olof Mellberg?
That's the one. Mellberg was playing. Yeah. So John Gregory was a manager, but I think they had the boy Hadji as well. I think he came from Coventry to Villa. So they had a good squad. But that whole period was amazing, playing with top players and like Matt Letitia. He was unbelievable. Players like that James Beattie was there, Kevin Davis, Wayne Bridge came through the youth ranks there. So it was a great time. But then the manager who was in charge at the time, Stuart Gray, got the sack, and actually Gordon Strachan came in. And I was a young lad. I was involved in the first team, in the squads quite a bit, wasn't actually getting on the pitch. And I knew that sort of after about a few months that me and Gordon just weren't getting on, or he just didn't rate me really at that point. He just didn't have a lot of time for me. And pretty much. It was difficult because Southampton were struggling at the bottom of the Premiership as well. So Gordon came in and brought in his tried and trusted, whether it be from outside the club or the most experienced players at the football club that he knew already and had played at the highest level. So I guess looking back, you can't blame him for that. But it sort of
take as little risk as possible. That's
absolutely. And it worked. We stayed up and did well, but it stunted my growth in terms of football. And I really struggled with the disappointment of having to more or less go all the way back to the start, like snakes and ladders. Basically, you've got so far and then you slide back down the snake and you go, right, it's not that you can't really be bothered, but you're looking at it as from square one again. And you're just like, this is hard, So, and I think when you're young as well, and that would be something that I would say to the young players: don't ever rest on your laurels, because the hard work begins once you get to the top. It doesn't get any easier at that point. You really have to prove yourself, and a top player, in my mind, is the most consistent ones. They can do it week in, week out, throughout their career, and that's why they are top professionals and top players, because they can do that. And that's the hardest thing to do is to consistently do the simple things at a high level, day in, day out. And that's what you have to aspire to do. So, I mean, unfortunately, it came to a halt, at Southampton with Gordon. I came back the pre-season. I remember the pre-season in my last year of my contract, and I was like, right,
you did that pre-season?
Yeah, I did that one. Yeah, I did quite a few, believe it or not, over my 20 years ago. I've just done the longest pre-season of my life in Australia. We did a 3-month one. It was torture. All right, I'll get to that at the end.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, getting back to Southampton and that, like, it came to it. Basically, I had a year left on my contract, and the very first day of pre-season, I walked in real positive, going, right, this is my year. I've got to get my head down. I'm going to show the gaffer I'm fit, and I'm going to be the best player ever. Right, Scott, come here before training even start. Right, you can leave. I was like, what? So that was a real blow for me, because the whole off season I was building myself up to work my nuts off to try and make a difference and prove him wrong. To be just showing the door, basically, you go on loan. You've played first team football. You're already a man now. You need to go and play men's football. There's no point you sitting in a reserves here, and it's not going to work for you. So in a sense, he was right. So I managed to go out on loan to Huddersfield.
How valuable was that experience?
Looking back, it was huge, because it was a very difficult period. The manager at that time was the assistant manager at Southampton when I made my debut in the first team, and I really trusted him. And Mick Wadsworth was his name, and actually he was the manager of Gretna for a period of time in the Premiership when they were ground sharing with Motherwell, actually. During that time. But he came into the club, and there was a guy called Andy Booth who was a legend at Huddersfield, Sheffield Wednesday. Big guy. Like always, my success was with a bigger man up top. We used to play two up top all the time. Yeah. And I was told I was going to play with him and make a great partnership. This would be good for you. Got there and ended up playing in a 4-3-3 and played left of a 3, and I'd never done that in my life. I was like, what's going on? At 18 years of age, you soon realise you got a lot to learn about the game. But again, that's why it was a great learning curve, because you were learning a different position. You were in a struggling team that in the end that actually went into administration through your period there. And when you're actually not signed at the football club, and I guess, a lot of Motherwell fans can relate to this because they've been through this situation themselves. And it's a very, very tough period, and a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of passion. And when you're a loanee from a bigger club, people tend to sort of take that frustration out on you as if you don't care for the football club because you're not one of them, which I can completely get. At the time, I couldn't, and it was hard to deal with emotionally at times, because you'd be warming up. This was near the end, and you'd be warming up and you'd be getting absolutely abuse, saying like, go home, basically. We don't want you to come on.
I certainly remember that, especially during the season that we eventually played Rangers in the playoffs, because we signed quite a number of players in that January transfer window. So there was always people going, oh, he's an imposter, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, a football player can only give their best, and that's the bottom line.
Exactly. A lot of football players, especially that come to these clubs are only starting their career as well, and they need to do well to progress in their career. So it's a win-win for most. You will get the occasional one that will toss it off. There's no question. But
look at that.
In my time, yeah, I'm not going to say anything about anyone, but it's one of them where, majority of them come with all the right intentions, but some things just don't work out.
Right, yeah.
And that was one that was, to look back on, a great experience for me, and made me a much more resilient person throughout that, for taking those criticisms and being able to digest them and in the future handle what criticism was to come my way.
Yeah.
And use it as energy, rather as a positive energy rather than a negative energy, which I managed to do on a few occasions throughout my career. So that ended up happening. End of my contract came at Southampton. By that point, I actually went to Bournemouth right at the end of that season, because I'd had enough at Huddersfield. I ended up going back to Southampton for a period, dwindling in the reserves, and then finally got an opportunity to go to Bournemouth in League Two, and we actually got promoted. It was at Cardiff at that point, the Millennium Stadium. So I managed to be a part of a team that got promoted, which was a great experience as well. Still only, tender age of sort of 19, I reckon. Yeah. And then was promised a deal there, but it broke down, and was sort of sitting the whole way through that pre-season thinking, what am I going to do? I actually ended up going the next pre-season. By this point, I'm sort of living with my now wife and her family, sort of bunking in there, thinking, what am I going to do in my career? I'll probably just end up going home. I've had enough. I ended up going to Dundee United on trial at that point. When Ian McCall was a manager. I ended up doing 2-3 days up there, and I hated it. I just did not like it at all. I just didn't get the vibe at that point, and I was so stuck in my way about living in Southampton in England and being close to probably my girlfriend, that it sort of clouded my judgment at that time. But Ian McCall and probably Dundee United made it easy for me, because they went away for their pre-season in Austria and sort of said, well, obviously we're not seeing enough of you to take you, but come back in a week to 10 days time and we'll kick it off again and we'll relook at you. And I was like, well, I ain't going to hang around for 7 to 10 days. I need to get somewhere. So see you later. That was me. I was gone. So I went down the road and ended up signing Wimbledon. I went on trial there for a few days.
It was a month contract, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. You're spot on. So, I mean, but for anyone listening, it's not all, being a footballer at times, as we all know, it can be a difficult process, and it's not all this perfect situation for a lot of boys. There's more lows than highs throughout that period, and certainly testing and how resilient you can be throughout those times. And it was tough. I never lost belief. I think people know that about my persona at times, or how it comes across, that I was always like a little shit, especially back then, and always believed in my own ability. It was just that I felt someone to believe in me and take the chance with me. That's what was missing. I felt I had all the tools to be a good footballer. And I never lost that belief, even through the rejections or the mishaps or the unfortunate circumstances of not getting a contract somewhere. I mean, I went to Wimbledon at that point, and then we're moving to MCDONALD. So it was, again, I went into a really tough period of a football club, and they ended up going into administration as well. So it was kind of crazy in that sense. And I was traveling from Southampton to London every day, and it was just like, no, this isn't working. So from that, broke that one up and ended up like, right, I'm going to go home. I've done my lot. This is it. I've had enough. And the story is being told, but Dave McPherson, who was then my agent, along with an Australian guy, Lou Sticker, had said to me, well, give it one more go. We've got this opportunity up in Scotland for you. And I was kind of like, well,
not Dundee United again. No.
Yeah, well, I was like, I've been up there already. I didn't quite like it up there. I was like, don't really fancy Scotland. I think I'll just go home. And the guy, and Dave, to be fair to big Dave McPherson, he was bang on the money. He was like, Scott, like, you're being an idiot. You're being stupid. Just go up, have a look at Motherwell, And if you don't like it, or if it doesn't work out, you can still go home anyway. So what you got to lose? I mean, it's a week of your life. Go and see what's what and take it from there. So I was like, right, okay, I'll go up. So I ended up going up, and I ended up lodging right next to Fir Park. There was one of the houses there that Motherwell used to own. I ended up staying in there. That was quite interesting at that period. So I went in, played. We actually played 11v11 up on the main pitch, you know, with the running track on it, DL Park. And I remember doing quite well. It was like the stiffs against the first 11, and I ended up scoring a couple of goals, and we battered the first 11. And
that's a good start then.
Yeah, it was a good start. Well, even from that, like, I mean, Stephen Cragen says the story, like, he was straight up to Terry going, "We've got to sign this guy. This guy's decent," like, which was really great of him to do that. And I think Terry had already sort of gone, you know what? I mean, and I was shocked. Like, after 3 days, Terry was like, "Right, we want to sign you to the end of the season." I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, that's all I need. I just felt like I needed someone to believe in me, and Terry was the guy to give me that opportunity. And I just, from there, I just completely just took off. It was an amazing time. And obviously I'll never forget my debut. It was obviously against St Johnstone in the Scottish Cup.
You scored that day, didn't you?
I did indeed, yeah. So, I mean, you couldn't wish for a better start. I'd never scored on any of my debuts at any of the clubs that I'd been at.
What was going through your head at the moment as soon as the ball hit the back of the net?
Elation. I mean, it wasn't my first professional goal, but it was just like, this is like the beginning of something. Yeah, brilliant for me. And I remember because we were 2-0 up when I came on and playing really, really well. It was the coldest day. That place is the coldest place to go and watch a game.
I hate Limited Park.
It's got to be, doesn't it?
It's the worst away day for me because, like, when I go, I take the train and it's a 45-minute walk up to the ground from the train station.
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awful.
And I just remember the wind howling there all the time. But it was like torrential rain that day, and I just remember just getting put through on the right-hand side of the box and just smashing one as hard as I could. I think I might even went through the goalie's legs. You just see it hit the net and like just ran straight into the crowd, and it was an amazing feeling.
Also, your first booking.
I don't even know. I don't actually think you got booked for things like that back then. That's how old I am, Gogsy. Yeah, you know, I don't think you used to be in at that point, but I think straight away that was.
Yeah,
I built a relationship with the fans straight away.
Yeah,
which was an awesome feeling for me. As a young player, that's what you want. You know, you want to build something and do well and have fans, you know, be elated by you. And that was, it was an amazing time at Motherwell because I did feel like I was loved and a great, exciting time. And we had some fantastic times, you know, at my time in Motherwell. But, you know, it's got to be said, like, you know, throughout the period probably that I had played for Motherwell probably on 2 occasions, if you're looking at it man for man in a squad sense, we probably didn't have as good a teams as what Motherwell had before me or after me, and certainly after me in my second spell as well, to have this success that I would have liked at the football club.
Yeah.
But in saying that, from a personal note, it still was very good on both occasions for me, and I enjoyed them thoroughly. Especially, I mean, the first one was special. You know, being from where the club had been, you know, in administration and all the troubles that they had, then to go 2 years on the spin to finish in the top 6 and build that financial sort of stability for the football club and get to a cup final in the League Cup was an amazing feeling. And obviously then we go on to,
we won't speak about the result,
the infamous day as well, you know, which for me at the end of the day, you know, that was one of my biggest and best days of my career because it set me up to another pinnacle. It put me on another stage,
platform.
Correct, doing what I did that day and the way I did it was truly special. And look, I'll never be forgotten for that. It's the one thing that was always mentioned straight away, whether it's, unfortunately, if it's a Celtic fan,
oh yeah,
the first thing they want to talk about is the negative rather than the positive. But it is what it is, But
well,
I wouldn't change
of course,
I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah,
it was. I was doing my job. I was a Motherwell player. I loved playing for Motherwell. Motherwell was all that mattered to me at that point. And playing against the old firm was always a huge occasion for any player outside there, because you wanted to prove that you could
compete,
step up and play at that level and score goals, because you knew that it was going to be foreseen as a higher level if you did it at that point.
So, of course, we're on the subject of Helicopter Sunday. What can you remember from that day? Because all I seem to remember is, for that second goal you scored, is seeing Jerry Britton run into the back post, and then as the goal goes in, he looks like he's just missed a bus.
Yeah, well, Jerry still says, because obviously Jerry is the CEO at Partick Thistle, so
yeah,
even as early as about 3, 4, 5 months ago, talking to him, he still brings it up and goes, if you had passed it to me anyway, I still would have missed it. I would have put it over the stand, because he's a mad Celtic man, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's what he says. He says, but you still should have passed it to me, so I could have done it. He just has a good joke and a laugh with it. But I suppose at that point as well, and that's the thing about me at that point in my career, I was so single-minded. I was difficult. There's no question. I was really difficult to deal with. But I had something in my mind that I had to prove myself, and wanted to be the best, and wanted to play at the highest level. And I always had the confidence that I could go and do that. And people probably doubted when I went to Celtic if I could go there and play. He's just going to be a squad player there. Whether it's a Celtic fan or a Motherwell fan, probably look at it and go, why is he going there for? He's just going to be a squad player. But I went there fully believing I was going to be the man, and thankfully it turned out that way. But I think you have to have that mindset, that positive mindset.
Absolutely, because when you're a young player, you've got to have that hunger and desire to push on. And I completely respect you for doing that, because I mean, if a big move came along for me, I would absolutely look at it and think, crikey, that's a big step, and I have to take that step to better my career.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think you're very young and inexperienced at that point as well. Like, taking it back a step as well. Before that, in the January window, the opportunity for Rangers, to go and sign for them, and Richie Foran had just left to go to Southend a few days before that, and there was stuff that came out in the papers and all that, and you look back and you go, oh God, like, why did you do that? But at the time, you don't know any different. You're getting led down the garden path, and you're thinking that's the right way to do things, and trying to push a move through, because you just see one finance when someone's giving you 4 or 5 times more than what you're on, and you're looking at. But even at that time, it wasn't even like, it was just the chance to. Before that comes up, I'm looking at going, right, if I'm going to go back down to England, I'm probably looking at Championship. That was me being realistic. I was being realistic. From Motherwell, James McFadden was an exceptional talent, a little bit younger than me as well, right? And to go to the Premier League from Motherwell, you have to be that extra special, and I don't think I was at that level, right? I was being realistic. So, but when Celtic or Rangers come, you're going, well, that's going to be better than that. This is the next pinnacle, because you've got a chance to frequently try and win things, play in Europe, and now play for my national team more or less every time the opportunity comes up, because you're now at that pinnacle. So when that comes, you sort of like, oh, I want to do that. I need to do that. So I was a bit difficult and upset at that point not to be able to go to Rangers because of that. And I thought, well, my opportunity is dead, because, well, there was no way Celtic were going to come in for me after, me, smashing those 2 goals in for us at that point. So I'm thinking, well, that's the opportunity gone with, and then crazy how things work though. They end up knocking the door, the middle, which is, if you look back at it, actually, it was kind of strange how it all worked out. Me signing for Celtic, because I ended up agreeing a deal and signing for Celtic in March, outside of any transfer windows. Right, fee agreed, gone and signed the
agreement. It was a pre-arranged deal, basically.
Yeah, pre-arranged deal, but for money. Like, you don't see that unless you're a free agent at the end of the season, really.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an odd one.
Football Manager.
Yeah, well, that's it. You know, so I don't think there's many deals that actually get done like that. So I kind of think, looking back, you know, Motherwell fans probably, we're in a relegation fight at that point. And I just remember Morris Malpass, just absolutely like saying to me, "You ain't fucking going. You ain't going." And I'm like, "Well, I am going." And he's like, "You ain't going to sign nothing." I'm like, "Well, I am. And if you stop me, then that's up to you. But I'm going to go." So he said, "Well, you're not going to play on Saturday if you go and sign the deal." And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to play then, am I?" So we ended up getting into this thing, and ended up on the Friday going to Celtic Park, signing the agreement. And I just remember, because I remember it well, because there was a big thing about it between me and him. And on the Saturday, turned up, got my kit on, right, you're playing. We played Dunfermline, and I ended up scoring a brace.
Which is always a good way to
get
yourself back into the manager's good books.
But I just remember going like, "See, I told you there wasn't a problem." I was just like, "Oh God."
Oh, Scotty.
You know, like, yeah. See, back then I was so petulant, mate. But great times, and that result actually I'm talking about, because that put Dunfermline more or less down when we beat them that day.
That was a big result.
And we were a huge result. And I'm thinking, that's us safe now. We're all good. But it wasn't to work out that way. There was a few worries to the back end of that season.
Yeah, like the game against St Mirren on the last day. That was a bit worry.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I stupidly ended up getting sent off the game before that as well. So my very last kick for
that game against Dunfermline.
I got a score.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up scoring a penalty, I think, and then straight from the kickoff getting sent off, because I was so pissed
remember
off
that.
Because we were getting beat 4-1, and I just remember, I think it was Scott Muirhead. Still remember the guy. He got ball in left back, and he just booted up the line, and he just sold me. Like, I didn't even really connect well with him, and he just went up and he was just screaming all over the place, and I'm thinking, oh no. And then obviously you get the red card. Can't finish the season in the right way for Motherwell after everything. And then now I'm looking at a suspension when I first get to Celtic for the 2-3 games. You're going, oh, that's absolutely killed me, you know, in terms of even thinking I'm going to start games at Celtic now as well. So
because I remember, because I was at that game. It was a Monday night, awful game. Because Mark Reynolds got sent off as well. Like, and didn't Jim Hamilton get sent off for Dunfermline?
Actually, it would have been Stephen Craigan that got sent off.
Stephen Craigan, right.
Him and Jim didn't actually see eye to eye a lot of the time, even when we were at Motherwell together. So Big Jim had sharp elbows as well. So I think Craigs was just trying to get in before he did, and it all kicked off. I remember that actually well. Yeah, because that was always a feisty contest, to be fair, when Jim came back to Motherwell. But talking about Jim was my best ever partner. I'd have to say, you know, in my time at Motherwell, he was phenomenal for me as a target man, and the things he used to do for me. I mean, the big man couldn't run the fastest, but he could certainly flick a ball on and be a nuisance. And some of the goals he scored for Motherwell in his period were unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the goal against Celtic, goal against Aberdeen at Pataudry.
Absolutely.
Unreal strikes, you know, absolute worldies. But no, he was a great teammate, and just great times, Scotty. I loved it. And working under Terry, and obviously the year after he left was hard.
Yeah,
because your mind's elsewhere. You're wanting to go somewhere else. The team's not performing at the same levels as well, and it was probably the right time for me to move on.
I've got a couple more questions before we move on from Motherwell. Of course, you were the first Motherwell scorer that I ever witnessed live. Really? Yeah. It was I don't know if you remember the game, but we played against Dundee up at Dens. It was February 2005. I think you scored the first goal, and we ended up losing the game 2-1.
Oh, did we? Right, okay. So that would have been the
I think
second time we went up there.
Yeah,
so that would have been the second time we went up there that year, because I think I'd scored a brace in the game earlier that season up there. Trying to think of that goal that year, that game.
I can't remember much of it. Like that, as that was like my first game, I didn't know what it was like being in the stands, and a massive eruption of a cheer, and I was like almost in tears because it was so loud because I wasn't used to it.
Well, I'm sure you've had more tears and elation along the way as well throughout.
I mean, football is just that thing.
And especially being at Motherwell, there's been, over the last sort of 2 decades, there's been so many ups and downs throughout that period. It's been some time for the club, and in more recent times, it's been such a successful period actually for the club, outside from when I was there.
And of course, my first game at Fir Park was in September 2006 when we beat Kilmarnock 5-0. Do you remember much from that game?
Tell me the scores of that game. I'm usually good for my goals as well. You know that. I usually remember. Did I score in that game?
Twice.
I don't think I did. Did I?
You scored twice.
Did I really?
We were 3-0 up after 20 minutes. I think it was Brian Kerr. Mark Reynolds might have scored as well, and I'm trying to think the other one. There's always one I forget. It might have been Richie Foran.
Really?
Yeah, and then you scored twice in the last 10 minutes.
Did I?
Yeah.
I need to get the DVD back out, Goggy. I need to get it back out.
I need it up here on my MacBook.
Do you know who's got them all? You know, Roscoe and Ali, the two obviously guys that work in Mother. They've got the old DVDs in there. We used to pop them on and sit in their room like during session, before or after sessions, and just watch all the old reruns of the games, and that. It was pretty good. I'm pretty sure they've still got them somewhere in one of those messy drawers of their that they've got in there if they're listening. Yeah. I hope they've tidied that place up by now.
It says here, Foran 15, Reynolds 20, Kerr 23, McDonald 86, 82 and 86.
That must have been when I actually could run in the last 80 minutes then. The last 10 minutes, rather.
Aye, and then you got subbed for Ross McCormack in the 88th minute.
Oh, really? So that must have been when Mo was the manager then, Morris Malpass.
Yeah, it was.
Roscoe was there. See, that was a big disappointment actually, because Roscoe had a great time at Motherwell. But obviously the year that he first signed for the club, he went through this mad illness period.
Right.
So for the first year that he was at the football club, it was a complete wipeout for him. We just didn't see any of him and couldn't build a partnership, which was quite sad actually, because I think we would have been excellent together.
Oh, you were.
And as Roscoe has shown as well, after I left and then what he went on to do, phenomenal footballer. And we could just, when we used to train together, could see that we were on the same wavelength a lot of the time. And that would have been an interesting one to see if that, how we would have went that season if he had stayed, fit and not ill.
That would have been class.
It could have been different, it could have been different. Morris could have still had a job, and Mark McGee might not have been there the following season. You just never know. But I'm pretty sure all the Motherwell fans are happy the way it turned out when Mark turned up at the club, because it was a great period for them.
So, of course, when you got called up for Australia, was there any chance at all you may have chosen to play for Scotland? Because I'm pretty sure there was. Had an opportunity at one point.
Yeah, there was a couple of opportunities. The first one came about because Morris Malpass, who was still number 2 under Terry, he worked with the under-21s with Scotland all the time with Rania Bonhoff, I think it was, his name was, the German guy who was number 2 more or less to Bertie Vogts. So when he was in charge, obviously he had talked to me and asked me, would you consider playing for Scotland or whatever, and I was sort of, I'm not sure at that point. I was uncommittal, and because it was under 21s, I didn't want to commit if it wasn't a full cap, because I felt like, well, if I do that, then I'm just showing my whole allegiance to Scotland, and that's me done. I can never play for Australia thereafter. That's how I felt, and I was sort of still. I was always Australian, because I always felt like I owed my country a lot for giving me the start to my career.
Yeah.
And going through the Institute of Sports and the government way and the coaching that I got, and going playing for the Joeys that got me overseas, which is the under-17s, and then playing for the under-20s. I just felt like I'd gone that whole pathway that I had to go and play for Australia. But when Walter Smith got in charge of the first team, he then asked me to go and play in a Scotland B game, which they were playing it in at Rugby Park. I can't remember who it was against. And that was more or less, that was more real than probably the under-21 situation when that came up, and I was really, really close to actually taking it on. But there was no guarantees of actually getting a full cap, so I decided to turn it down. And well, looking back at it, probably looking at my career with Australia and what I suited better and what kind of person I was. And look, I consider myself to be Scottish more than Australian now, because I lived all my adult life more or less within Scotland. So, and throughout my period at playing at Motherwell and Celtic, became very, very much like all the rest of the boys, and I felt a real relationship there with the Scottish players, and I felt like I was one. And then when I went back to squads within the Australian camps, I just didn't feel I was one of them or part of that group anymore. Yeah. So it was kind of odd. And then when things weren't working out in terms of performance-wise and not playing all the time, I kind of felt like I might have made the wrong decision here. Maybe I should have went down the route of playing with people that I would have enjoyed playing with, and the country I felt was pretty much more me at that point as well, and still is. You know, it's because I'd been away from Australia for such a long time.
Yeah.
But look, I think in the background as well, you're looking at it thinking, well, I want to go to a World Cup, and Australia had a great opportunity to go to World Cups, but that's a different story in itself as well, in terms of how that didn't work out either for me. Which is probably the one thing in my career that I look back on with the biggest, I wouldn't say regret, because it wasn't my doing, but it's the biggest disappointment throughout, that I didn't get the chance to go and play in the biggest stage. You know, I play in the Champions League, but you know, to play at a World Cup as well for your national team would have been the highest honour.
So it's my understanding that for example, with the Scottish national team on international breaks, they sort of meet up, they go to a training camp, they have some days training, and then they go to play their matches. But what's it like with Australia? Because I see Australia as the sort of journeyman of all nations, because you've got players in Japan, Switzerland, France, Germany, the UK, and they're all so far widespread. What's it like for the team having to gel in that short period of time before going to play a game?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of camaraderie there, and being Australians, very patriotic. So it doesn't take much to get everyone together. I mean, what we did have was a good support group in the background within Australian football, or the national team setup. It was so professional, you know, because you talk about players being in Japan or Korea, or, you know, in the UK or Holland, or wherever they were, you know, everyone was traveling from all different areas of the world. So to get everyone in and get them prepared to play, you know, a game within 3-4 days, and then fly back to the countries to go and play for their clubs again, it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of organisation to do so. And we were always top notch at that, whether it be flying as business class or coming up with, you know, innovative ways for recovery and making sure that the legs and the body were right to play in the game. I think even as much as, I think it was the World Cup, the last World Cup in 2018, they even used these UV lights, sunglasses, while they're on the aeroplane. It sort of was apparently to make sure they didn't get jet lag while traveling. So they come up with this. It's all, they try everything and anything just for an edge, because there is so much travel involved. And that was the difficult part, doing all the traveling within the national team. Sometimes, especially when you went to the bigger clubs, there was a lot more pressure put on you from the clubs themselves to sometimes not go to the games, depending on if they were important or not, because they didn't want you to be fatigued when you come back, and had their eye on other things.
Do you have any pals within the Socceroos camp right now?
At the moment, I think I'm too old now. I think in terms of the last one was Mile Jedinak, who's just
I
retired.
thought it would
Actually,
be him, yeah.
Yeah. He was the last one of my era to now have retired. But he was a great lad, great football. Had a great career in the English Premier League down at firstly Palace and then Aston Villa. But yeah, he was my age group going through. And he was the last one.
How would you compare competitions such as like the Asia Cup or Asian Champions League to the prime competitions in Europe?
They're as tough. They're just as tough. There's no easy game in international football anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And all these countries now have got technically gifted players. Like when you play teams in Asia and the Middle East, they have exceptional, skillful players. What some of them can't do is actually remain disciplined and keep their shape and keep a system. But since a lot of foreign coaches have come in and there's a lot of backing financially to these countries, they've got some top level coaching, and grassroots has got better and stronger as well. So even for Australia now being in Asia to qualify is getting more difficult by the year, just because these other countries are progressing and spending money to get up to those levels, whereas Australia's falling a little bit behind because we're not really producing the players that we once were, or players going overseas to Europe anymore. There's not as many, and the Asian market's slowly shutting down as well. And then you've got to put into consideration the conditions that you're playing in half the time.
Oh yeah.
You know, so for European teams, if they were to come out to, the Middle East and play, I remember going to Kuwait for a World Cup qualifier and getting off the plane at midnight, and it was like 41 degrees, at midnight. So you're going,
welcome.
What the hell are we going to do in this? What time's the game? It was like 8 o'clock. I'm like, and it's 41 now. What's it going to be then? And I just remember that game and coming in at half time, and there was like blow up bar, like your swimming pools, the blow up ones that you get for back garden. We had about 3 of them in the changing rooms with all just ice baths. So the boys, everyone just take full kit off, full nud, half time, get all of it off because it's just wringing wet.
Yeah.
You have to change your boots. You have to change your boots. Everything needs to come off, restart. Everyone's just sitting in the ice bath, done, right? And the manager's just chatting tactics, and you're just like, man, I've got to go out there again. It was really challenging and difficult. And that's the conditions you're up against because these guys are used to that. So it really can be a leveler as well. So there's no easy games. And I would, the top European teams would even find it hard to go to some of the places that we had to. And then you go to places like Iran and that where it's like 80,000 just men in a stadium.
Yeah.
With some atmospheres, like crazy atmospheres, at places like that. So, I mean, it's a great experience though, I must say, going to places like that.
What game is that Australia shirt behind you? What game is that from?
That's actually the one you were talking about. That's my debut jersey.
Aye?
Yeah. So it was against Bahrain when I was still at Motherwell. So that's actually, I was just saying to you, wasn't I? Because everyone will see that one there, right? And they'll go, why has he got that one up there? Well, I can tell everyone that was actually a couple of fans who gave me that. So it's quite special. But these are the only 2 shirts that, I got my Aussie one framed. And that one was given to me, and I've never framed any of the other ones yet because I keep moving, Gogsy. You keep saying it. Well, you keep getting new clubs, so you find more room. So more clubs than Tiger Woods, eh? But I will find the time to. I've got some really special ones. I've still got my League Cup final one that obviously we lost in. I've still got the one from the infamous day. I've got one home and one away for every team that I played for every season that I've played.
All right, yeah. That's fair
stocked away somewhere, and I've also got some really good jerseys from top players as well, all the way through internationally and that as well.
I've got it hanging up right now. It's in the background of every video I do. It's a signed shirt of a player that you may know very well, Stephen Pearson.
Piero, yeah.
Yeah, Piero. It says signature just there.
Yeah.
On number 8.
I really like that. Was my favorite jersey. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you'd like it.
I really enjoyed playing in that kit. That was one of my favorite ones. That season was a good season.
That was a good season.
Great season.
I only missed 5 games that year.
Yeah, I mean, it started off terribly.
Oh yeah.
I mean, off the back of, I was surviving the year before, beating Rangers in the playoff, and then obviously that start of the season, Ian and Stephen Robinson in charge, recruiting again, hoping for the best, and just never got off to a good start of that season, and then found that Ian had obviously lost his job quick on, and it was just recovery mode thereafter. And took us a while to get going, and once Mark McGee got us up to speed, we really did well that season and went on an unbelievable run at the end of the season to get into the top 6. It was really enjoyable, and I got to say I loved working with Mark McGee. It was a real fun time.
But see, when we had that time against Rangers when we beat them in the playoffs, what was the preparation going through? Like, because I remember, like, obviously we had such a good home form for some reason, and then it was just away we kept dropping silly points. But what was the preparation for the playoffs like?
Like, I was fortunate, and me and Piero especially. You look at Piero's shirt there, but we had come in the March time, so we were quite immune and numb to everything that had gone on in that season. So we were quite fresh, and things had started to turn, and we were winning more games than we were drawing or losing when we had managed to come in, and we changed the tide. So from a mindset, the mindset was so positive, even though we couldn't get ourselves enough out of trouble to not obviously get in that playoff. That was disappointing. That was a tough part, because I remember the 2-3 weeks leading into that period, I was staying with Steve McManus at the time, and there wasn't a night that we wouldn't sit there and have a cup of tea going, do you think we're going to get out of this or what? Like, this could go anyway. I reckon we'll get Rangers. We'll get Rangers in the playoff. You watch, we're just talking about it every night. It was just destined to happen, with all the ex-Celtic players being at Motherwell as well. And then obviously Stuart McCall being at Rangers, it was almost meant to happen, wasn't it? It was always going to be on the cards. But I remember being, obviously, the game, we played Partick Thistle last game of the season.
2-0, yeah.
And, and Ian changed the team completely because he wanted to make sure everyone was fresh for the midweek game against Rangers. And there was a lot of confidence within our squad, because we looked at Rangers and they weren't playing that well. Let's be real. No. They finished, I think, fourth. They finished third, did they?
So they had to play two.
They had to play Queen of the South, and then they played Hibs, didn't they? And they beat Hibs. So we knew that they were still a little bit fragile, and we had the more experience within the squad.
Yeah.
You look at like Stephen Hamill, Keith Lasley, Piero, myself, Mick, and we all had good legs still, and we were very experienced, good footballers. And we've been to Ibrox time and again, and being in pressure situations. Okay, this one was bigger than any, I would say. And I think for me as well, there's always a recovery from when you go and play, for Celtic at Ibrox and you lose. You always get another day. Whereas going there with Motherwell, you knew like it was everything, or nothing.
Life or death.
Yeah, correct. And it was more than, I think all we could think about as individuals, and it wasn't necessarily about us as players. All our minds were on was the people that worked at the football club and the fans. But I think because the people at the football club are the people that you spend the most time with, and you're always around them. And I'd known them a lot through my period the first time round, and everyone's jobs were on the line. And you know how much the club means to these people. So having all that on you was quite a surreal experience and a pressurized one. But again, we were lucky because we had players that had dealt with pressures before, the senior ones, to help obviously the younger ones as well be a lot calmer in the situation. And we had some good players. Lee Irwin was fantastic when I come in. really turned the corner.
Another big guy you played alongside?
Yeah, exactly. And I enjoyed playing with him, and I think and like to think that I helped him a lot during that period, because I think he'd only scored 1 goal in the season until
and that was the opening day
together a lot. Yeah. I mean, because when I first come, I thought I'd play with Big Sutty. You know what I mean? Sutty would play. Sutty was the best foil for me, and Sutty's a goal scorer.
Sutty's brilliant, yeah.
But in the end, like, we needed legs. We needed someone who was going to go and run the channels, and I didn't really do that as much anymore. I hadn't played up front, to be honest with you. I hadn't played up front for almost 18 months before coming back to Motherwell. I was playing centre.
When you played,
I was playing centre mid.
Didn't you play like centre mid, centre attacking mid, that sort of role?
Yeah, I was playing as a number 8. So I'd come back to Motherwell and restarted again and playing as a centre forward. And not that you had to learn it again, but it takes you. You need to get up to speed quick, but you need to be clever and intelligent. And running the channels at that point, I was definitely not going to be doing that. So when Lee come in and managed to do it unbelievable, I was actually really disappointed. But you can't turn a club like Lee's down, I suppose. Probably when they were offering that money, but I just felt for his development at the time, or wished that he had stayed at Motherwell and played another season with the likes of me and the senior players that were there. And I think that it would have improved him as a player, and I still think he would have got a great move thereafter it. But at the end of the day, players make their decisions and they move on, and you can't blame him for taking it at that point. But no, the squad that we looked at, and when we had Marvin Johnson and Lionel Ainsworth, you're like, oh my God. And I really thought, for me, when I come back, I was like, these two guys are absolute whippets, right? They can run like the wind. Just give it to them, and just like you were at Celtic,
let them carry it.
Just let them carry, and you get in the danger areas. And they were fantastic that back end of the season, and were great in the 2 legs against Rangers, and absolutely destroyed, Rangers at Ibrox with their pace. And that was something that we'd worked on. But I think Ian Barracott was talking about it recently, wasn't he? And said that we had changed training grounds. We weren't at DL. We ended up going down to the golf club and using their facility. What's the golf club called down the road? DL.
I'm not entirely sure. I don't actually live in Motherwell or anywhere around that area.
Oh yeah, I know you don't. Yeah, so
I actually live in Cooper. If you've heard of that place,
I know where Cooper is. I know exactly where Cooper is. My actually, we've got relatives that live in Cooper, mate. So there you go. Not me personally. My wife does. One of the dentists in there. She's the head dentist. She's a head dentist. So stopped there a couple of times on my way through to St Andrew's training ground, mate, for a cup of coffee. Beautiful spot. But getting back to our training, so we stop talking about Cooper for a minute. We ended up having the week in a different sort of place, because Ian wanted a different mindset and somewhere different for eyes and whatever else, which was a great idea, actually. It freshened everything up.
Oh yeah.
Training in a different conditions can do that sometimes. So it was a great idea, and it was enjoyable. We try to keep it as relaxed and enjoyable as possible moving into that first game. And we knew our best team. So by that point, there was no more shuffling. We'd played 3 months of good football together. We'd got a lot more positive results than negative ones. And we knew, if we could just frustrate Rangers in the first leg, keep it tight, that we were always going to get a chance. I never thought in a million years we'd be 3-0 up after 46 minutes. Looking at the scoreboard going, I've never been 3-0 up here for Celtic. This is unbelievable. And then just when you think the second leg's going to be a lot easier, McGregor pops up with a header right just before the end of the game, and that sort of struck a nerve with us. And it's probably a good thing, actually. And I think for all Motherwell fans, it's sort of like, right, we'll enjoy this moment, but it's not over yet, because we know if Rangers get that first goal at Fir Park, then it's going to be game on again, isn't it? And then we'll see what our nerves are really made of. So I think for us, especially, I remember talking to Steve McManus about it. Obviously, like I said, because I was living with him at the time, I was like, fuck, we need to score the first goal here. Like, we need to get this first goal. I said, because if we don't score that first goal, I don't know how some of the players are going to react, and can they deal with that pressure, and then Rangers pushing on it, as that's going to be hard to stop. So, but we played a perfect game that day, and we were very disciplined. And then obviously a little bit of strike, a little bit of luck with the first goal, and
a wee bit of luck.
Yeah. Well, you can see after that how much it relaxes everything, and people start to free up and play the game again, and then the floodgates open, and they believe obviously to get the game's done as well. So it was proved right. We needed to score first and just shut them out.
Yeah,
and
I'll tell you a wee story about that game. It may have been the most nervous I've ever been for 90 minutes of football in my life. But as a 15, 16-year-old, I was sitting in the front row. A lot of people on my channel will be aware of this story. And I knew I was going to be on telly at one point, just in the background of when the ball was going past or whatever. And Stevie Hamill is on the bad end of a bad challenge from Andy Murdoch. And Craig Thompson is right in front of me talking to Andy Murdoch, and before he brandishes a yellow card, I pull out my pocket of my jacket, a red card. I'm like, send him off, ref. And that got like so many tweets on Twitter, and it was going, it basically broke Scottish football Twitter.
Were you on BT Sport, like brandishing the red card, were you?
Yeah, like it was just in the background, and I think whoever was commentating.
It would have been Derek Ray. Is it not the geezer?
Yeah, Derek Ray, that's it.
Yeah.
And Derek Ray made a passing comment on like the fans getting really into the game or whatever, and it was just me brandishing a red card and going like, send them off, Ray. And I got quite a few death threats from Rangers fans, but that was quite fun.
Oh, did you? But you got your famous moment then?
One of many.
Yeah. No, well, there was quite a few incidents in that day, wasn't there?
Oh, that was the craziest game I've ever watched.
Yeah, there was a lot more that went on as well that you guys don't know down the tunnel afterwards. But that's for another day.
Is that for another day?
Yeah, I can't brandish those types of things, even on a podcast. I can't do it. But,
that's fine. I'll hassle you about it.
But it was quite fiery. Yeah. Even after the game, with everything that happened on the pitch, fell off, into the change rooms and everywhere else. But it was again, I don't even think I was delighted, but it was just more a relief at the end of the game that for me at that point, I hadn't really thought about coming back to Motherwell. I was sort of like, right, well, that's job done.
Job done.
Ticked. Come back.
Save the day.
Got asked to come back. Loved it. Done what I had to do. Walk off into the sunset like John Wayne. That's you done, right? Thanks everyone. Be forgotten. I'll be remembered as a good guy. And as things happened, and my wife was pregnant at the time as well with our third child, and how much I enjoyed my time coming back and living in Scotland again as well. I just knew it was right to come back. It was like coming home, I loved coming back to Scotland and living there, and being at a club like Motherwell. I really seen it as a homecoming, realistically. But it was nice at that point, without thinking that way that I was going to come back, that everyone's jobs are saved. The club can rebuild under Ian, new squads. All my mates that were there previous, they're going to be good for a while as well. And the club as well. The club itself was going to be, given another opportunity to go and, kick on again.
Yeah.
Because if, you look at what would have happened possibly if we had got relegated that year.
We could still be there.
There's no cup finals. There's no finishing third and seconds and all that. It would have been a difficult period. And I think, everyone at Motherwell would probably agree with that and understand that from a financial point of view, that the situation that the club were in at that point. But you've got to say what a job that, everyone at Motherwell have done since to turn it around, but also not just rest on their laurels, but actually produce young players. And the amount of money that's been brought in now from the development of the youth side's just been phenomenal. Like the good old days, you would say, from when the likes of Faddy was at the club and Piero and, Even, you know, Lasley left, Hammy left, you know, they all went on to have great careers. And that seems to be that cycle again, which has been really benefited the football club. And I think there's still more to come, obviously, with the likes of Davey Turnbull and that as well. It's really exciting to see what's going to happen and the club progressing. And now there's a chance to play in Europe again, which is great.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be in the stands for that, but until we at least make the group stages, hopefully. But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame, isn't it? You know, but you know, for the club to finish in the position it has, though, it's secured.
Yeah.
After all this crazy COVID as well, it secures them again to go and push and, you know, be able to recruit better than quite a lot of the football clubs. So they're in a good space at the moment, albeit still hard times. But from what it could have been for the football club, I think they've been very astute in terms of how they've done their business in the last couple of years. So they're in a good space right now, which is great to see.
Right, so we'll move on from Motherwell for the time being. You unfortunately signed for Celtic, your boyhood club, of course, and went on to score an impressive 51 goals in 88 league appearances. Can you tell us what percentage of those goals were against Motherwell?
A percentage?
A percentage.
Percentage of them. I'm going to say it's going to be between about 8%, 10%.
15.69%.
Is it as much as that?
As much as 8 goals out of the 51 were against Motherwell.
Wow. Well, I did score a hat-trick on the first one, didn't I?
Yeah, cheers for that.
So that's probably bumped me up. And, you know, that was a crazy day because it's the first time I'd ever had a feeling for a football club playing against them and then playing against all my friends, which was, I remember Gordon Stratton coming to me before the game and saying to me, take all the emotion out of the game and just relax, just play your game. And it was great advice, but I got to be honest with you, I didn't take it. I didn't really use it. Like before I scored the first goal, it was just a weird feeling.
Yeah.
Even after the game, like it was quite rewarding in one sense because it's like, you know, yes, scored a hat trick against my old club, but it was kind of odd feeling. I was kind of mixed emotion with it. And I remember Phil O'Donnell actually giving me the ball after the game for my hat trick. So I remember that clear as day. He'd give me it and obviously congratulate me at the time. And again, it's just so surreal because you made so many good friends at that point. That was the first time that I'd actually come back across Motherwell. I think what helped, probably different manager, a couple of different players.
Yeah. But
the core of the team was still the same. I learned quickly though that when you play for an old firm team, you're not very well liked when you come back to Fir Park. And I actually really, yeah, exactly. No, there was nothing personal, and it was never personal for me. But it was kind of like, you don't want to boo me. That's the worst thing you could do.
Because you're that type of player that's just going to thrive off that pressure.
100%, and that's what I did, you know. And every time I come back to Motherwell and played against Motherwell, that just burned me on even more to do even better, because that was just the type of guy I was or am. You know, if you're gonna doubt me or, you know, be derogatory, I'm gonna want to answer back. And what's the best way to do that?
By scoring goals.
And then reminding people. But maybe the reminding bit sometimes I think a few people took a bit too much to heart the first time I come back anyway. But yeah, look, you're young and feisty, and if I was at the age I'm at now, or a little bit more experienced when I'd gone back, I wouldn't have done that. But yeah, I wouldn't have had to have done that. You know, you've done your job and that's it. And you're always gonna get people trying to roll you up. That's just part and parcel. That's part of the game. They're trying to put you off and trying to help their team win the game, and that's all it was from Motherwell fans. And because when you come back again the second time, the reception and everyone when I come back was amazing. And that's when you know that like you've had special times at a football club, when you come back and you're received well. And even coming back again after second spell has been exactly the same when you turn up, and that will never go. Motherwell's, my club still, it's so special. Celtic I supported, but Motherwell, like I said, is still a special club to me, and you're always looking for results.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people still there that you're associated with, so you're always keeping an eye out on it. And then you see all the young boys that are playing now, they were all just coming through in the under-20s when I was there. It wasn't that long ago when I was there, let's be real. It's not like, I think it was 3 seasons ago or 4.
Yeah.
Coming up 4 now, but so these young boys now are starting to progress. It's great to see them actually doing really well.
Can we pause it there? My camera's just timed out, so I need to change the battery pack. But this is going
no worries.
This is the end of part 1 of my podcast with Scott McDonald. For those who have made it this far, will be pleased to hear that the second part is now live on the GogPod YouTube channel. The link is in the description, and I hope you enjoy. And a massive thanks once again to Skippy for coming on, and this has been one of the best podcasts I have recorded. Anyway guys, enjoy, and I'll see you on the GogPod.